What keeps a man from ever finding peace? Is it fate, sacrifice, or is it something deeper? Like the weight of being needed by everyone, yet truly known by no one? For Peter Parker, better known as Spider-Man, happiness is not a destination. It is a fleeting glimpse, always slipping through his fingers. Because Peter's story isn't just about saving New York, it's about losing again and again. Not against the villains he comes across, but the very things he loves most. His parents, mentor, a best friend, a soulmate, and even himself. Spider-Man is one of the most beloved heroes in fiction, not because he always wins, but because of how much he endures. He carries burdens no one else can see, hides scars no one else will ever touch, and smiles through a loneliness that never leaves. And that's what makes Peter Parker the perfect mirror of our own lives. Because the truth is, some of us know what it's like to give everything and still feel empty, to put others before ourselves and still feel unseen, to fight for joy only to watch it slip away. Today we dive into the loneliness of Peter Parker and why, no matter how many victories he earns, Spider-Man can never truly be happy. This isn't just a list of tragedies, it's a pattern that starts before the spider bite and never really ends. This is the story the movies tell, across 3 different timelines of Peter and 3 different worlds, of why Spider-Man can never be happy. Before he's a hero, Peter is an orphan. That's the first hollow room he learns to live in. A house filled with love, but marked by 2 missing seats at the table. In every version, the details shift. Sometimes his parents die. Sometimes they disappear. Sometimes there's a briefcase with secrets, a plane crash, a whispered message that never reaches the kid who needs it. What doesn't change is the result. A boy who grows up watching other families from the outside, learning to make himself small to avoid being a burden, learning to act fine because the people caring for him have already lost so much. Aunt May and Uncle Ben give him stability, kindness, and a roof that stretches thin paychecks but never thin patience. Still, that early absence leaves a mark. It's the first lesson in Peter's education. The world doesn't always explain itself, and what you love can vanish without warning. He grows up with a permanent tilt toward responsibility, the kind that comes from washing clothes before being asked, from doing extra shifts, from carrying more than his share, because he knows what it looks like when adults are tired and there's no one else to help. That's the seed. Long before the spider, long before the suit, Peter's life teaches him 2 things. People can go, and if you care about them, you do what you can to keep them safe. It's a beautiful instinct. It's also the beginning of his loneliness. Then comes the bite. Everything in him changes. For a second, it's a gift. He has no need for his goofy glasses anymore. He's shredded and has strength one could only imagine. So he jokes and goofs around for a bit and then tests limits. He tries to cash it in for quick money too with his new superhuman power. But then, the story takes the turn that defines him. Uncle Ben dies. All because Peter let a bad man walk away. Different films in the comics frame this slightly different. A different form of fight. A doorway, a cashier, a street butt. The core is the same. Peter could have stopped it all, yet he didn't.
You could have taken that guy apart. Now he's going to get away with my money.
I missed the part where that's my problem.
Minutes later, the person who raised him is bleeding on the ground. Peter kneels over there, helpless. There's no note, no explanation, no parent to hold, just the echo of a last conversation that wasn't kind enough because neither of them knew it would be the last. From that night on, every laugh Peter allows himself has to pass through that memory. Every decision he makes is weighed against a quote that's as heavy as a headstone. With great power comes great responsibility. It's not just a motto, it's a debt he never finishes paying. He looks at his hands and sees both the power to save and the reason someone wasn't saved. The lesson is carved into him. If he ever chooses himself over the job, someone else might die. That fear teaches him to push people away, for their own good. That choice feels noble, but it also guarantees he will be unhappy, always. Being Spider-Man isn't a part-time gig, it's an alarm that never stops ringing. When he's Peter, someone screams somewhere. When he's Spider-Man, a teacher takes attendance. His rent is due, his date, waiting at a coffee shop. His best friend, Harry, calls him. Peter isn't there. A lab partner needs him too. He holds a place for everyone, but he can only be in one place. This is where his happiness starts to dissolve into schedule conflicts. He drags a torn suit under a jacket and pretends he's fine. He clearly isn't. He tries to keep a job and gets fired for disappearing mid-shift because a siren called him away. The city loves Spider-Man. However, Peter's landlord wants his rent on time.
Give me rent.
You know, all I got is this 20 to the rest of the week.
Sorry, he doesn't pay the rent.
It's funny when he trips over a backpack on the street, but not so when that stumble becomes a missed exam that knocks him off the track he worked so hard to get on. The mask protects the people he loves. It also builds a wall off from them. He can't tell Aunt May where the bruises came from. Can't explain why he didn't show up to dinner. He can't tell his best friend what he does at night because the truth would put a target on the people he cares about. He wears the mask to keep them safe, and every day it quietly tells him, "You can't be fully known, Peter. You either choose being needed by millions or loved by a few. Pick one." This decision, however, is one that he cannot simply choose to make. It isn't easy. It shouldn't be so either. Best friends are supposed to be the place where your life makes sense. However, for Peter, friendship is where the ground splits. With Harry Osborn, it's a textbook heartbreak. It's his childhood best friend. They both grow up side by side, sharing food, jokes, and the small embarrassments alongside their big dreams. Then Harry's father dies in a fight with Spider-Man, and grief reroutes into vengeance. Harry looks at Peter and sees a friend who keeps defending the man he hates.
I find him with my father's body and you defend him because he's your bread and butter.
Spider-Man is a murderer in the eyes of Harry, and there's no way for Peter to fix that without tearing off the mask and risking everything else. The secret that protects his world also ruins it. He can't defend himself without revealing himself. And so, the friendship curdles.
Isn't that right? Huh? Isn't that right? Huh, brother?
What started off as just suspicion turns into betrayal from Pete to Harry. Then comes violence, and in the end, even when forgiveness comes, it comes late. Late after scars, injuries, and a final act of sacrifice that can't be thanked because there's no time left. Peter loses his best friend and then the chance to make it right. With Ned Leeds, the tone is a lot different. It's lighter, warmer, and built on school hallways and science fairs. Ned finds out the truth, and for a while it's perfect. A best friend who knows, laughs at the chaos, and helps with the little things that make a big difference. But the truth in Peter's life is never free. When the world learns he's Spider-Man, Ned pays the price for it too. In tabloid headlines, in college rejections, in danger he never asked for. And when Peter finally saves the world by asking to be forgotten, he erases himself from Ned's life to keep him safe. That's losing a best friend twice. First to fame, then to mercy. Ned lives. He gets a future, a good one. The cost? Peter can't share it. The love story of Peter Parker is always almost. With Mary Jane Watson, it's the ache of timing. He loves her from across a backyard fence, from the far side of a stage, from under a street lamp where he's not brave enough to say what he feels. And when he finally does, the mask steps between them. He believes being with her will get her hurt, so he steps back. He watches her choose someone safer because he can't be what she deserves. When he finally tries to have both, enemies use her as bait. Dinners get missed. Anniversaries turn into apologies. The worst part of it being that even when Peter tries again, the rhythm of their lives never quite sync. He leaves to chase sirens while she waits, says he's sorry, and she believes him because she knows he means it. But sorry doesn't give back stolen time. With Gwen Stacy, the pain is sharper. She's not just a girlfriend, but a partner. Clever, brave, and able to keep up. They try to design a life that can hold both Peter and Spider-Man. It almost works until the city throws them into a clock tower with no good options. He catches her, but tragedy strikes again. This time it's a deep one. He's a second too late, and that very moment doesn't just break him, it rewrites him. After that fall, every smile comes with a question. If he lets himself be happy, who's gonna pay for it this time? With MJ in the MCU, hope takes a different shape. She knows him. She sees the boy without the mask and the boy with it, and she chooses both. That should be the solution, right? For a little while, it is. But then the world learns of who he is, and her life is torn open, too. There are cameras in her face, futures closed all because of a fight she didn't pick. It's almost like Ned's, but worse. When Peter tries to fix it, the fix breaks reality. The only way to save everyone is to ask to be erased, and so Spider-Man does it. Once again, he's alone. She's alive, safe, but just doesn't know him anymore. He visits her at the coffee shop he used to call home and swallows the words that would bring her back into danger. Happiness is right there, just one conversation away. However, he makes the opposite choice. That's love too, the kind that walks away before it ruins the person it wants to keep. New York City loves Spider-Man when the sky clears. It loves him less when debris is still falling. J. Jonah Jameson turns him into a headline that never ends. He calls Spider-Man a menace, vigilante, hazard, a kid with blood on his hands. Even when Peter wins, the city debates whether he should have been there at all. When his identity is exposed, he loses the one thing that made the rest bearable: privacy. All of a sudden, his face is a billboard. His name is a trending topic. He can't walk down the street without someone trying to capture him, blame him, beg for a selfie, or accuse him of a crime he didn't commit. The people he loves become collateral, not because he hurt them, but because he exists. That turns happiness into danger. The more visible he is, the less safe everyone else he's close with end up being. Thus, the fix is one that's cruel yet sounds so simple. To just disappear, and he chooses it and erases himself from the world he just saved. If happiness means being known and safe, Spider-Man isn't allowed either. There's a moment in one of the universes of Spider-Man, on one terrible week, when the mask offers him a way out. The alien suit arrives like an answer to a prayer he didn't want to say out loud. It gives him more strength, more focus, and more edge. It makes everything easier. It also makes everything darker. It shuts off the parts of him that kept him human. It doesn't create anger, it amplifies the frustration he's been swallowing for years. The pain and trauma alongside insults, breakups, betrayals. All the small humiliations of a double life tend to bubble up and finally boil over. He says things he can't take back, throws someone into a table and doesn't even apologize. He looks down from a cathedral at the city he bled for and feels nothing but contempt. That's the scariest version of Peter's loneliness. It isn't just being alone with others, but being alone inside himself. He rips the suit off because he realizes the power that numbed his pain is costing him his soul. The world is heavy again, and Spider-Man is yet, once again, unhappy and alone, because he'd rather suffer than become the thing he fights. Part of Spider-Man's reason for loneliness and unhappiness is tied to just how often the people who anchor him are taken away right after he's learned to lean on them. In one world, it's Tony Stark, the unexpected mentor, who gives him a new gear, confidence, and a seat on a team he grew up worshipping. Then, in a war that ends the universe and restarts it, Tony dies right in Peter's arms. It's heartbreaking. The kid who needed a father figure now has a folded flag. In another world, it's Captain Stacy, Gwen's father. A decent man who sees both sides of Peter and asks him to protect his daughter the only way he can think of, which is by asking him to stay away. Peter tries but fails. He loses both of them. First the captain, and later Gwen in the worst way a person can. The multiverse cracks, enemies pour in, and it's not just monsters, but men, broken in ways that make sense when you look too long at them. It did be easy to just send them back to die, but Peter can't do it. He tries to fix them instead. That choice of his ends with Aunt May on the floor, with her last words turning into the same burden Ben once gave him. He wants to kill the man who did it. Two older versions of himself hold him back. Two ghosts of futures he could become if he lets rage make decisions for him. Then comes the spell, the choice that clears the board. If he asks for everyone to forget Peter Parker, the cracks in the sky will close. The villains will go home cured. His friends will live, except that he'll be alone in a way he's never been alone before. Not just a secret, but erased. No diplomas, no contact list, no photographs where his face is still in the frame. He makes that choice because he's learned the most brutal version of his lesson. The best way to protect the people you love is to remove yourself from their lives. He visits MJ, sees the small cut on her forehead, and swallows the plan to win her back with words. He decides her safety is more important than his happiness. He walks out, moves into a tiny apartment with bad lighting and thin walls, then sews a homemade suit by hand and goes back to work. It's absurd, noble, and devastating. The purest distillation of who he is and why he can't be happy for long. Tobey Maguire's Peter Parker learns the slow grind. He carries rent, exams, late buses, and villains who always seem to interrupt the handful of hours where he isn't apologizing to someone. He gets moments holding MJ's hand, a friend's last smile, a quiet swing at sunset, but they're always purchased with something he can't get back. His sadness is cumulative, a stack of small losses that eventually weigh as much as the big ones. Andrew Garfield's Peter Parker lives the sharp edge. His joy is bright and fast, and then it falls. Gwen's death is the kind of event that rewires your brain forever. He becomes someone who saves people because he couldn't save the one person who made him feel seen. When he gets a second chance at catching another falling girl with the care he couldn't give before, it's healing to him, but it doesn't erase the years that came between. His sadness is a single wound that keeps reopening when the weather changes. Tom Holland's Peter Parker is the sacrifice. He starts with more than the others, a mentor, a team, a suit smarter than most satellites, and ends with less. A forgotten name, an empty apartment, a handmade suit, and no one to text. He chooses that ending. He believes it's the only way to make up for everything he broke trying to do the right thing. His sadness is chosen not because he wants it, but because he thinks he doesn't deserve anything else if it puts people at risk. In every arc of the Spider-Man universe, Peter Parker always ends up alone, telling us why he can never, truly, ever be happy. The last image we get in one universe is a window looking out on a city that doesn't remember him. He drops his rent on a counter, places a mug in a cupboard where no one else will reach for it, and then threads a needle through a cloth, makes a suit that looks like hope, and swings into the cold. It's not a happy ending or even a sad one, but the kind that makes sense for him. Spider-Man is alone by choice, carrying a burden he won't share while saving strangers who will never know his name. He isn't punished or rewarded, he just keeps the promise he made when he was a kid at the worst moment of his life. Peter Parker can't be happy the way other people are, because his life doesn't leave room for it. The mask he wears is both a gift and a curse. He's the boy who stood over a body and decided that if he could help, he would never walk away again. You don't make that promise and then retire into a quiet, comfortable ending. You honor and pay for it.